welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about TV, movies, comics, and all things geek. To celebrate 20 years of awesome, we're looking back at Samurai Jack. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
This is Tommy Smithereens.
And I'm Clifton.
So, this month, the acclaimed animated series Samurai Jack turns 20. Premiering in 2001 on Cartoon Network, Samurai Jack follows the story of a noble samurai prince who was transported into a dystopian future by a shape-shifting demon arch-nemesis Aku, who is now the ruler of the world. Armed with his enchanted katana, Jack, as the samurai would go on to become, tries to desperately find a way back home to his own time, so that he could defeat Aku once and for all and undo the future that is Aku. The show is created by Gendy Tartakovsky of Dexter's Laboratory and is really known for its art house style and sensibilities, eventually winning 8 Emmys total. The series ran for 52 episodes, ending in 2004, but a revival of the 5th season in 2017 aired on Adult Swim. So let's get into it. Samurai Jack turns 20. What do we like about Samurai Jack? What struck us? First impressions.
The look for sure.
Okay.
I would definitely say the overall look of, backgrounds and characters. Backgrounds especially. Backgrounds always are the thing that I always notice first about Samurai Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Just how different and then also how gorgeous they usually are.
Right. Who was the often background artist? Scott Wills.
Scott Wills, yeah.
Yeah, excellent artist. You can find some old videos online of him actually painting some of his background art that he's done for other stuff.
Mm.
It is fascinating on YouTube just watching him work.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to check that out. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, we'll post those because I love watching these. I love watching it. It's like, he's not talking. It's not even doing like commentary. It's just literally the camera's just on a piece of paper and he's painting. He's painting a background based off of a drawing, but like a sketch concept. Yeah, he's fantastic. So Frank, let me ask you, since you started us off, when was the first time you saw Samurai Jack? How did you get into it?
I watched from the beginning. I remember watching the Cartoon Network was showing the commercials for it, and I remember not knowing too much about it. Like I knew who Gendy was, from. I'm trying to think what was earlier than Samurai Jack.
Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah, that's where it would be. Would be Dexter's Laboratory. So I knew him from that, and I really enjoyed Dexter's Laboratory. So I was like, well, I'll give this a shot too. And again, it was one of the things where I'm trying to remember if the commercials. It just basically gave you the premise, and the idea of a time traveling samurai sounded phenomenally cool.
Right.
The whole fish out of water, and then time travel, and then the fact that just the idea of like I said, the whole idea that he's out of his own time, but still fighting the same thing that he was fighting in his own time,
right,
is always a cool idea for me. I always like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and again, the visuals were like from the quick cuts of the visuals from the episodes was always that drew me in too.
Okay, all right. So you were in right from the start. Tommy, what about you? I assume you watched it pretty early on too, right?
Yeah, I was there when it debuted as I won't say hour long, but it was a little bit longer than an hour because I think it was the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But what really drew me in is at the time, it was the cartoon that had the most anime elements in it. Like, I've never seen a cartoon that have that much action, like what anime displays on a regular basis.
Well, then I'm going to stop watching it now because
you just ruined it for Frank.
Yeah, I don't like anime. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, but no, that's what drew me in is because just the cutscenes alone in which you would advertise it, what he did, the stylishness of it, and the whole samurai aspect of it, it drew me into that sort of I guess action variety show or whatever.
Clifton, what about you?
I was there for the pilot premiere. I watched I remember probably a Saturday night that they had hyped doing the first 3 episodes, but then I didn't watch the rest of it for a long, long time. I was traveling right after it. I was out of the country for a while. So I saw the beginning and then I didn't get into it. And then I came back and just didn't get into it until I didn't catch up until a long, long time later. But I have seen all of it at this point now. But I do remember the pilot. And I do remember being taken by how little dialogue and how much there was action and pantomime, just kind of silent filmish almost. in many ways of how they would just convey story without dialogue. I do remember being taken by that early on, which was a stark difference from everything Gendy was known for before that, because obviously Dexter's Laboratory he created, but he had worked on Two Stupid Dogs, which is an early like Cartoon. I don't know if it was Cartoon Network original, but that is the first place I saw it when Cartoon Network first formed. And it's a very like silly, chatty show, but I did like it. It did crack me up when it was on.
He directed a lot of Powerpuff Girls.
Right.
Okay.
Too. Yeah. When that was going strong.
Right.
Before all this, because a lot of those guys, they came out of like Cal Arts, like a lot of like the Johnny Bravo guy and Craig McCracken who did Powerpuff Girls, and they all went to school together, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think Johnny Bravo was Van Partible.
Yeah,
if I remember right. And
so, like it sounds like I think that they all just got kind of like snatched up by Cartoon Network, like right around the same time with like what do you got as far as like new shows when Cartoon Network was really starting to push a lot of original programming and stuff like that. So yeah, so he was way into comedy early on, and it shows in Samurai Jack still, because there's humor to it and everything. I was late to the party on this. I wasn't watching a whole lot of Cartoon Network at the time when this was running, so I don't even have any memory of commercials for it or anything. It was just sort of like this show that I had heard about here and there. Like I would know people that were into it, obviously, and it would just kind of come up. I think my brother really was the first person to kind of intrigue me by it, because he just caught it one time and he's like, man, that's like an episode of that show is like going to school for cinematography. Yeah. And I was like, that's an interesting thing to say for a Cartoon Network like cartoon. And then but I'll tell this story. So this is when I got into it. I was home like one Saturday night. It was pouring down rain. There was nothing going on. Like all my friends were just kind of like in for the night, like, and this was like season 4. This was when right when Samurai Jack had won the Emmys, right? And Star Wars Clone Wars, the other show that Gendy Tartakovsky had gone off to do, had also won Emmy Awards. And so they were like, Cartoon Network, to kind of celebrate, the whole night was kind of doing like an episode of Jack and then a half hour of Clone Wars, and an episode of Jack and then a half hour of Clone Wars. And I just kind of caught like nothing on TV. I'm flipping through and I just caught like a fight on Cartoon Network. It was one of the Birth of Evil episodes, I want to say. I was like, what is this? Oh man. And I just like sat down and checked it out. And then Star Wars came on and I loved that. And then Samurai Jack came on after that. And I was like, and then like, I just sat the whole night, like just getting Gendy Tartakovsky stuff just thrown at me, just like, this stuff's amazing.
Right.
Like,
it's kind of funny. They give you like a little tiny piece of Samurai Jack and then like all of Clone Wars, because that's only like what, 2 hours total.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I missed like the first 5 episodes of it because I caught it sort of like staggered.
Yeah.
But and then when I got in, I was hooked. I mean, I was really hooked. I don't remember when the DVD came out, but it was in pretty close proximity to that. And I remember buying the first season DVD and The Last Samurai, the Tom Cruise movie, the same day, because they came out the same day. I remember, and I bought them both.
Which one's better?
Don't make me choose. I love them both. But
did you get a speeding ticket?
No. I did not get a speeding ticket. Not this time.
You weren't that excited about them.
No. Well, they didn't have speed cameras at that point. Yeah,
okay.
I would have otherwise. But yeah, so I'm with you guys too. I mean, it was, the lack of dialogue is always one of the things that jumps out at people, and then there's just the thing that caught me was like all the split screening, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because I went back and watched some again to prepare, and like that was always it was a daring stylistic choice at the time, not just the split screening, but also going for like the 16:9 or like the 1:8:1, like the super letterbox aspect ratio they'd go to a lot, and just intercut different aspect ratios for different scenes. And now it's funny because it looks like the 4:3 looks like it's the stylistic choice.
Right.
Just because we're so used to the letterbox now. Like everything's letterbox now. But back then it was not. It was the opposite.
Right.
Everything with the normal stuff was supposed to be the 4:3 stuff. And the like daring stuff was supposed to be the letterbox widescreen stuff. That did crack me up when I went back to watch stuff. Because like it's totally flipped. Like now we're used to this one and there's nothing special about that. But just the fact that they did, I mean, it was a lot of, I guess, 70s kind of like kung fu film, I think is what they're trying to emulate a little bit with the split screening, like going for some of the like 70s film techniques and stuff.
Yeah, I remember somewhere, it might have been a commentary on that first the first DVD or something like that. He brought up 70s cinema a lot. Like I want to say like The Longest Yard.
Okay.
Was one of the ones he brought up, and which, you know, I'd only seen the Adam Sandler Longest Yard. I'd not seen the
Burt Reynolds one.
But my assumption was that like that must be what he's talking about as far as like all the split screening and stuff like that. Like
it could be. It's a very 70s aesthetic.
Yeah.
Well, he went on record at one point saying that he wanted to make it like kung fu.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
like the TV show Kung Fu,
the David Carradine show.
Yeah, David Carradine show. Yeah.
That makes sense. Wandering the earth like Kane and Kung Fu.
Exactly.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I could see that. Getting adventures all at the same time. Because it does that a lot. Yeah, now that you say that, of course it does that. Because there's a lot of like callbacks to stuff that he's learned before in episodes that basically help him in the present day situation, right?
Yeah, and then the long scenes in which you see the landscape with the sun rising or setting behind the character as he walks into focus.
Yeah, that's totally Kung Fu.
Yeah,
that's absolutely.
I remember hearing Scott Wills talk about that because he was like that was kind of tough as an artist to do because all the episodes typically started off with Jack walking through a couple of different lands and landscapes before you get to the setting of where the episode is going to be. And he's like, just coming up for different ones, right? Just for a quick shot was always tough.
Yeah.
You know,
I would like it. I always wanted an atlas for that world.
Yeah.
Just to see where everything is or supposed to be. Cause again, I don't need continuity to be that tight, but it was one of the things where that's in rewatching a lot of the episodes. It's very much I get the Samurai Jack walks all over the place, but at the same time, you know, as you said, there's different landscapes for that are just establishing shots and nothing really beyond that. So I'd love to see how it's all put together.
Right.
If it is like, if it's not just like, it was a cool aesthetic at the time. So that's what we ran with. So
it is. I mean, that's one of the things that when I was doing the intro, sort of like, you know, doing like the elevator pitch on what the show is, it can sound, I think, much more serialized than the show ended up being. Right. You know what I mean? Like it can set like if you don't know what Samurai Jack is and you're just hearing it for the first time and you're getting a bit about like, oh, this guy's transported to the future and the whole show revolves around him trying to get back to basically defeat this opponent.
Right.
I think today's TV sensibilities would bear on you to go like, okay, like every episode is going to be continuation and going to the next one. And then there's going to be this big sprawling epic story that's going to unravel over 4 seasons. And the show's not that. No. Like there is a, when I think of episodic television, like Jack is the one that always jumps out to me is like, this is where it works. And this is where it's a strength because you can do whatever you want.
Sure.
In this, you know what I mean? And that's one of the things I like that it wasn't so rigid that literally it was just like, what do we want to do this week? This sounds cool. Let's do that. And then like the mood and the backgrounds and the music and the designs and all that stuff could just kind of like revolve around like we're kind of doing like a Western this week.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like, or we're going to do like a noir.
Right. Well, I mean, that's one of the things about it. When Tommy was saying Kung Fu, it makes me think more about 70s TV and the idea that, you know, if you had a character that was, you know, like the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, Incredible Hulk, right? Yes, there's, you know, he's trying to control the dangerous, you know, thing that lurks within him. That's the premise. He's the Hulk or the fugitive, but you know, there's an overarching story, but there's also the idea that we can tell other stories. We can tell one and dones. Like we don't do a lot, you know, serialized television today. You don't get a lot of one and dones. Not that much.
You don't.
usually a lot of it is just basically, like you said, to drive the story forward, and it's all connected, and we have to have this mean something else down the road. But in that kind of storytelling, you definitely had a lot more of, helping. I mean, I was trying to think. Avatar does it pretty well. The Last Airbender, I think there's episodes where we get a chance to let characters breathe in situations they normally wouldn't be in.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the two, I think both shows do it really well, because you get that moment of like, no, there's an interlude, and we're gonna have, someone. So again, like someone not like you said, it's more so in Samurai Jack, the idea that we can do whatever we want. Because I don't know if you could do a Western quote unquote in Avatar, or robots, a robot noir story in Avatar, where it's as much as like Samurai Jack lends itself to doing that.
Yeah. And I just it just reminds me that like how gratifying that kind of TV is, right? Because, there isn't a lot on TV anymore, like that 70s stuff where like Magnum PI is the same in every episode and everything. And I'm not kicking serialized TV. I love that too. And I think, that's why I love Avatar, is the serialized aspects. But yeah, right. I mean, you don't get, like you were saying, a lot of standalone stuff. There's always going to be a thread someplace now, even when they try it, of building to a bigger story. But this, it's really the opposite. There's, in that original batch, there's a handful that's sort of like
the mythology,
vaguely like hint at something broader, bigger happening. And this is just my theory also, and I feel honestly like they didn't have a plan for that stuff. They were just like, this would be a cool ending to put this in, like,
but again, I think now that I think about it more, is like when I said the thing about mythology, I think a show like The X-Files is another show that does it really well.
Right.
Is the idea of like, we have this overarching story of like the cigarette smoking man and the conspiracy, and the Greys and Mulder's sister, but at the same time, we're going to give you a story about inbred monsters in a hillbilly town,
right?
That while at the same time, that kind of stuff was going on too. And I think one of I'll put it this way, I think there's, because you see those lists of like top 10 episodes of standalone versus mythology, right? And I think you could easily do the same thing for Samurai Jack, because you could easily have it be, well, these are the episodes if you just want to watch a really cool show about a time-traveling samurai that has nothing to do with the overarching story of trying to defeat Aku. You could easily do that. As well as, these are the ones that you should watch if you really want to see what the through line is for this show. And I agree with you. I think it was just like, somebody rolled into their office or, whatever on Monday, like, hey, I got an idea for, let's do the Battle 300.
Right.
With Samurai Jack. That kind of thing. 300 plus.
Which I think was before the movie when they did that episode. Yeah. I think it was before the film 300. It was possibly inspired by the comic 300.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was well known by that point in time. But it was before the movie.
The Frank Miller comic, I think, had come out by that, but the movie had not. So you could, but that's the kind of thing I think is that aspect of storytelling that we don't get in serialized stuff, is the aspect of like, let's just play around with what we're doing and see what. And that was the thing I like when I think about that kind of storytelling. What I like about Samurai Jack is he's not always the focal point in those stories. Like, I think it's like, it's, in rewatching episodes to talk about the 300 plus one is what I was calling it, because it didn't have a title, but the 300 plus one story, I'm like, there's a point where he's running with the phalanx and he's like part of the group, but he's not. Right. I mean, he's instrumental in the climax, but it's not like everything is about Jack. It's their story, and he happens to kind of guest star in his own show.
Yeah.
Right.
It's narrated by somebody else talking about their story.
So that's a neat aspect, I think, that we don't get enough of with characters, is the idea that, especially if you're world building or universe building, it's not always going to, as cool as we want our main character to be, it's not always going to be a situation where that character is the one that's, necessarily driving the narrative or the central plot.
It did do some interesting things with stakes, though. I remember like the first episode that really got me, as like, once I was hooked, right after I'd seen that initial batch, that night I was talking about, on that rainy night. But when I got the DVD, when I got to episode 7, and that was the Jack in the Wishing Well, right? Or AKA Jack and the Three Blind Archers. That's the funny thing with the show too, is like the titles are just the number of the episode. And I think like all the titles like got attached after the fact, after it had been on for a couple of years. So that one was called Jack and the Three Blind Archers, but that one had sort of and had a commentary on it. I remember listening to it after I saw the episode, but there was something about that portal that felt like a genuine, honest chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Whereas, like, it's one of those things. It's like, you know, we know Batman's gonna win, right? We know Superman's gonna win at the end of the story, right?
Right.
Like one of those things. Like I by that point, I knew the show was like his attempt to go back is going to be thwarted somehow, and then he's going to continue to have to find a way. But there was something about that portal in the Wishing Well episode that was like, that felt like a legit chance, right? That felt like like, whoa, one, like he could win this one. Like, this feels important.
It's like Gilligan almost getting off the island.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then I remember listening to the commentary, which had Brian Andrews, who was a storyboard artist / writer,
who's now currently a director on What If, correct?
I believe so.
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah, I think so. It was him and his brother, I believe, Mark Andrews, who's a Pixar director now. And they said exactly that in the commentary. I remember they were like, we wanted something about this episode to feel like this was a real chance for him to go back. And I was like, that's so nuts. Like, cause that was 100%. Like, I don't know how they did it. Like, I really don't know how they did it, but it was like, that was the feeling I had. And then to listen to the commentary, I'm like, holy crap. Like, they just said it. Like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so every once in a while there were attempts like that. You know, and the other episode I was being a little vague about, but there's an episode where there's another portal that, you know, he could potentially go back, but it's guarded by a warrior. Right. And he has to defeat the warrior in order to get into the portal, to get access to the portal and go back. And, you know, I'll spoil it, but he basically fights this guy to a stalemate. And the guy is like, you're good, Jack, you know, but you're not going to get to go back yet. Not yet. Right. And then you see like an image of Jack, like when he's really old, he's got like a crown and a long beard and stuff like that. Like, that's one where it hinted at like, oh, like he's going to get to go back when he's way older. Like, he's going to have to do this for a long time.
Right.
But I don't know that they had any real plan about that. I just think that that's what I was saying. I think that was just a cool visual that they just wanted to put in there.
Right.
Like, that's a cool way to end this episode. Let's do that.
And this is not a slight in any way at all, you know, way, shape, or form. I don't think they had a plan. I don't either. I don't feel like they had any kind of plan. I think it was just kind of like, nope, we're going to keep telling stories and we'll keep seeding stuff. And, you know, eventually he gets home or he don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So, which is fine.
It was very Looney Tunes. I think it was very Looney Tunes in that regard. Like, I think that was their model a little bit more, along with 70s stuff, but just that type of storytelling where you're like, you can just put this character in any situation and everyone will just go along with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I remember seeing them talk about season 4 because they were sort of like unsure if they were going to come back while they were doing season 4. And then they were like, when it became evident that they were not coming back, they were like, well, do we want to end it? And then they were like, no, like, we don't want to rush it. Like, we don't want to just like come up with an ending for this. Right. Just sort of like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, just sort of like out of thin air, like be rushed to do it. So they're just like, no, we're just going to
slap something together.
Yeah. We're just going to keep it going. Like they're, you know, like there's going to be another episode after that and there just won't be. And and they always thought like, we'll get to revisit it at some point, maybe.
Right.
But yeah. And I think that's like, I respect that decision. I think that's really, really fun. And I like that it was left unfinished for so long. And Clifton, what you were saying about like the Looney Tunes thing, and the other thing that kind of got me about Looney Tunes inspiration is I was hearing an interview, I think it was Scott Wills, saying that like there's really no writers on the show.
Right.
Yeah.
These like the storyboard artists are the writers.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a board first show because you do get that distinction in animation where, generally speaking, the action shows are going to be scripted first before being boarded, and then like the comedy shows will be boarded first, like Dexter's Laboratory and stuff will be boarded first, and that's how they write. Like they spitball an outline, they spitball some ideas, and then they storyboard an episode, and that's where the gags are, that's where the stuff's written. And Samurai Jack's kind of the opposite, where it's an action show, but it's a board-driven show, which is kind of the abnormal thing about it.
Yeah, and all those old like Tom and Jerry's and Looney Tunes, like those were all done the same way. Where like, somebody was storyboarding that out, and then somebody would come. It was kind of like the Marvel method, and then somebody would come on board and then start like adding dialogue, where it needed.
Right.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's just a super interesting way to make the show, because when I hear Gendy talk about it, I kind of think he's talking about Batman the Animated Series sometimes. Right, where he's saying like, I just always wanted to do an action show,
right?
And his beef was like, the action shows on TV, the action cartoons like never had enough action.
Yeah,
he was like, they're always like so plot heavy and everything that like it just didn't have time in 22 minutes to get into like a lot of serious like fighting and stuff like that. And he doesn't say Batman, but that's always my feeling. I'm like, well, he's got to be talking about that, because I mean that show is the closest thing I can think of.
Right. It was the king of the playground, like right before that.
Yeah.
When he was coming up.
And so I just think that it's like, it's really, really fun to have that as the motivator, just to be like, I like fight scenes. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to revolve a show around fight scenes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Not that there's not a depth to Samurai Jack, but no, you definitely get a lot of good fight scenes in it.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed in a rewatch was just the use of sound to establish stuff, like the idea, like, we need to establish a mood or a tone early on. And that, it's just kind of like the I don't know how to describe it, just the establishing sounds of like the first episode, when they have some of that stuff, when they're just showing you kind of the rebirth of Aku. There's no dialogue in that for like the first 11 or 12 minutes. It's all just, sound effect and sound and all that stuff. And it's amazingly told well from just using music and sound. And
there's like an Aku sound effect, like an Aku magic sound effect that I can like hear perfectly in my head. I can never describe what the sound is, but like it just defines Samurai Jack if I were to ever hear that sound.
Sure. That's what I'm talking about, Clifford, is the idea that, it's done, and it's not anything that I hear anywhere else. So I figure it's done, it's done specifically for that. But
I like that the show was disciplined also to not just have like wall to wall music all the time. Which the music is fantastic. I mean, this is one of those where like, I do on occasion buy like soundtracks to things. Like animated soundtracks and everything. And this is one of those, like, I keep hoping that, I'll check the internet one day and see that they're putting a Samurai Jack soundtrack out, because I love the music. But at the same time, like there's a magic and a fun to just, when he's walking through the grass and you're just hearing the wind, just the like, and the rustling of the grass and his footsteps. And it's like, I can't say it enough. Like, it's just such a unique show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was watching in a rewatch the one with all it's later in the series, but with all the bounty hunters, trying to first talk about how they individually get Jack, and then deciding like that won't work, so we got to work together. But like the sound in that one is a drip from like an icicle onto a porch.
Yeah,
and like that's the only sound you hear for like a good little portion of the episode. There is just this drip every once in a while. Just to build up like the tension. It's just like all silent except for that little steady drip.
Yeah. That's a great one. That one has like different visual styles like within the episode too. I remember. Yeah. I was excited to catch that episode. That was one because I watched the whole show on DVD. And that was one of the ones, Tommy, you had actually told me about that episode before I'd seen it.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, that was one that you were like, that's one of my favorites. I really, really like this one. And when we were just talking, we were at dinner or something, and I was just like, I'm getting into Samurai Jack. And you're like, this is a really good one. And it just like the season, I think, what was it, 4? I guess the season 4 DVD hadn't come out yet.
It was season 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that one I like as well. And that drip that Clifton was talking about earlier, it also signified time.
Right.
Because when they catch him, or at least they get to him, in the course of a drip is how he dispatches all of them. So yeah, exactly. So I mean, you're right with the building the tension, but as soon as that drip starts and they attack him, you don't hear another drip till they're all down. Even the explosion that happens in the background, all in the course of a drip. Just to signify how nice he is or nice he has gotten. over the course of being there, because they don't even impede his journey or what he comes across, which I love the episode. It signifies so many things with the story, as well as how great it is. And what Frank was saying, he wasn't even the focal point of the episode. They were talking about him.
He's barely in it.
And when he's in it, he takes over everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I love that episode.
Does he even have a line in that? Does he even have a word of dialogue in that episode?
No, he doesn't talk at all. You're right. He doesn't even talk.
Yeah, do they have to pay, what's his name?
Phil Lamar.
Did Phil Lamar get a credit or a check for that one?
He's always talking about how easy that role is, because he's like, Jack doesn't talk much at all. He's like, I say 4 lines and then I'm done.
Yeah, he might have had some grunts, some sound effect grunts.
I mean, he's great. I mean, he's great as Jack. With that was one of the things that we need to take with the voice acting too, because Phil Lamar is great.
Yeah,
and I know we were there for it at a convention where he was he was having a talk in a convention room,
a panel,
in a panel, right? And I ran into him on the way to the panel because I didn't know where the panel was, and I asked him. And he gave me a look of like exasperation, like it's right around the corner. But it was a great panel because he talked about all the various roles that he had been as, Jack and Jon Stewart and all that stuff. So, yeah, he's great.
His take is so interesting too, I think. And really quick, I just want to say though, but that Bounty Hunter episode made me wish that the toy line got deeper.
Right.
Because I was like, all of those designs are awesome. I would have loved to have had action figures of all of them. Yeah. I wish they had gotten farther into it. But yeah, I mean, the cool thing about Phil Lamar, from my understanding too, is that he auditioned.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing Gendy in DVD Extra or something, or some interview I've read of him, where he was like, everybody came in and auditioned the Jack and did their big heroic voice, right? Like everybody basically was doing, I guess, like Superman, right? And then he was like, and then Phil Lamar came in and he just and it was even keeled and low and quiet, and he was like, "That's it, like that's what I want."
Right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, Phil Lamar's terrific in it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the R.I.P. Mako.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize this. He did the intro on Dexter's Lab. That's how long he'd been working with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah, it didn't connect, the intro and the end credits right before they sing in Dexter. Yeah, the low voice that just talks.
Okay.
That's Mako. Yeah, I didn't realize that's him at all. Yeah.
And then Mako is, of course, Uncle Iroh.
Yeah.
From Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so Aku and Iroh, such opposite characters.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's hard to imagine they're the same person.
Yeah. Yes, but both badass in their own way.
Yes.
So.
Yes. He was a fan of his because I think he appears in Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the wizard.
The Schwarzenegger movie. And Gendy's a big Conan fan. Conan the Barbarian fan. I have on one of the DVD panels, like he lists it. So I'll read it really quick. This was it was like a forward almost. It was on the packaging itself. It said Conan the Barbarian, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Star Wars, Blade Runner, Seven Samurai. These were the films that I grew up on, and they were an inspiration as a kid and as an adult. And I'm like, yeah, like there it is, the first one.
Right.
Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
And Mako was also Master Splinter in the Imagi 2007 CGI Ninja Turtles. It's so underrated also.
Yeah, that one is a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. But anytime I get to bring that movie up, I'll do it. So I took my shot.
I was going to say, they didn't really have a lot of stunt casting for voices either, right?
I mean, I recognize like when you get the chattier characters that are always the supporting characters, I recognize some of them just from other animation stuff mostly.
Clancy Brown.
Yeah, Clancy Brown, John DiMaggio.
Gotcha.
I do recognize a lot of those type of actors.
Right.
The one I can think of, and I wouldn't even call it stunt casting, but he's the one that still makes me go like, oh wow, is they had David Alan Grier.
Okay.
Voice. He calls himself Da Samurai, D-A, Da Samurai. It's like a season 3 episode. And that was one that I'm like, he doesn't do a ton of animation. I'm sure it's not his first cartoon that he's voiced, but I'm like, but he's not one. He's not like, he's not like Tom Kenny who's on everything, right? Yeah. That's a fun episode too. Which that's part of the thing I love about this show is that there are like the Wishing Well and Blind Archers episode and the Bounty Hunter episode that are just cool, and the action's awesome, and it tells a really moody story. But like the one where he gets turned into a chicken, I love too. Like,
right.
There's an episode where it's right after the Spartans one. It's like the next one they produced after the Spartans episode. And that was like this big, like epic one. And that was the only one that's like all in widescreen the whole time.
Right.
The next one is like he fights a band of marauders and they destroy his shoes and he's trying to find new shoes. And I love that episode. I freaking love that episode. And the music's so great in that one. That's kind of a joy watching it a little bit, is that like every episode when it's like you didn't know what you were getting into.
Right. Sure.
Well,
that's the thing. We were texting the other day, you and I, Zach, and I was telling you, but we were talking about the title cards on Batman the Animated Series, and the idea that when rewatching these episodes of Jack, I had that moment of how different would it have been, like my experience of, oh, there's a title card for this episode for Samurai Jack, because when you see him, granted, it's easier to do in Batman the Animated Series because those a lot of times it's something like Bane. So you know full well what you're getting, or it's Harley and Ivy, or Christmas with the Joker, or whatever. But this, like you said, I think with this, just going straight into the story or straight into establishing shot, helps you as a viewer feel a little bit of what Jack feels.
Yeah,
because you're off guard of like, well, what usually it's always Jack is walking into a situation or Jack is already in a situation, but the viewer doesn't have any clue because it's a future world and it can be anything. I just wondered, like, if there was ever a conscious decision that, well, no, we don't want to throw titles in there because we don't want anyone to have an idea. Like for example, with the Spartan one, if it had been 300+1, well, then you might have an idea of what it was, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you might have an idea of what to lean into, as opposed to like when the story just starts up and the narrator, the king, is basically narrating. You don't really know for sure what you're gonna get.
Right. Yeah, I'm always interested in sort of like the intersection between animation and comics. And what's cool about those title cards at Batman is they feel like covers to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always how I like to think about it. And Jack, yeah, like I don't think it would quite have worked with Jack. I would have said until just this last year.
Right.
When Kid Cosmic came out on Netflix, which is Craig McCracken's show. And that's an interesting show that I think figured out how to do like the comic cover on screen.
Okay.
And what they do is that it starts like Samurai Jack insofar that like it's the story, right? It's the first few minutes of the story and this is our situation. And then we go into it. And then somewhere in those first couple of minutes, there's a freeze frame, right? That looks like a cover. And then it's like Kid Cosmic and the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay,
right.
That's neat. I love how they did that.
Right.
And so that's one of those things. Yeah, I mean, I guess if Jack did something like that, maybe it could work. But I like that it just kind of, like you said, it just drops us in.
Right. Because I'm trying to think I was trying to think about it since Tommy brought up the whole thing about Kung Fu, and I'm pretty sure Kung Fu had titles, because that was like, it was a 70s thing to have a title for the episode flash on the screen before they went into the episode.
Right.
So again, it was just one of those things where I was just thinking about how the show's put together. I'd wondered about that.
Fun fact, Michael was in Kung Fu too.
Was he really?
Oh, was he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, which is insane.
He defined Gendy's childhood, apparently.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But yeah, I just like that aspect of it, the idea that you're just sort of, it's even more so when we get, once we get the theme and then Aku, gives you, or Mako gives you the whole, the explanation of what the show is, which I always like in my themes. Once you dropped into it, like he's literally dropped through the, the spiral into the scene, in the opener.
And then Will.i.am takes over.
Yeah.
Which is also great too.
Sure. Oh, of course. That's fun. I mean, again, I like I said before, I am a firm believer in themes and of having a theme for a show. Like, I don't think you need to just cut to like the next, like whatever your show is, and not have it like have credits over it. I much prefer a theme, and I always love a theme that explains what the premise is. Even if it's something like going to like Batman the Animated Series, that you pick it up immediately on like what's going on without any words or voice for that matter.
Just I am the night. That's all you need.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking more about the idea of like, would title cards work? Would they not work? I don't know. So And then the idea of the covers, and that's a cool idea too. I'd like to check that out.
Yeah. So what are some other standout episodes? What are other ones that we like?
I like the one in particular where he's walking in there. He gets different foes during different seasons.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, that was a great
Seasons
episode.
of Death. Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, they won an Emmy for that one. That was one of the last batch. That was one of the ones I watched on that rainy night that got me. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, why do you like that one? I'm curious.
The imagery. I mean, it what it entails. It's almost like 4 different episodes, but all based upon the scenery. I mean, everything that you like about the show is all like thrown in there, and then it all shows you what it encapsulates without actually spoiling anything. It's a great lead in as to what it overall accomplishes and does so subtly. Great music, great backgrounds, engaging fight sequences, and vivid environment.
Yeah.
But I agree with Frank. I'd love to know how they mapped out that world though, man, because it seems like he walked for a whole year to gain that whole
right
for the whole situation.
What I love about the seasons episode is how it makes me feel the weather of the time period he's in, right? Like the summer section, I'm like, man, that's hot. Like I feel like it's hot and sweltering, and then the fall one, like the colors are just so like unbelievable, like with the leaves and stuff, and then I feel cold, and it just like it does it so well with just like drawings and sound effects.
Like Scott Wills, like that Scott Wills snow. Like I would love to go anywhere that has Scott Wills snows. It just looks gorgeous.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
And it's always fun for me. Like I always love episodes that 22 minutes is not long, but I'm always impressed when you get an episode that can tell me multiple stories within that 22 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's one of those, that and weirdly the Bounty Hunter one, like they feel kind of like the Almost Got Him Batman episodes,
right?
Which
I say,
I hate to keep bringing up Batman, but it's weird because like I mean it's they do to me have some synergy in that they're both episodic in that way, and I think of them both as like mini films. But
yeah, it is funny because the flip is that in the Samurai Jack when they're talking about how they will get him. Not how they almost did, but how they would hope to, and then somebody pokes a hole in it.
Yeah, and I'm just always so impressed that you've carved out. Now you're telling this story in a commercial break, really only
you mentioned
that one's 4. So what's your average on that? 6 minutes less?
Yeah, I mean, because basically you're having an act break for every commercial, but at the same time you're trying to cram as much story. I mean, that's the economy of that show is the fact that 22 minutes is, I always feel like in 22 minutes, I got a complete story, but I also feel like it was too short.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that as a slam. I don't mean that as like a negative. I just mean like, there could have been more to this. There could have been, I'd be happy if he stays there for another episode, whatever he's doing. But it always feels like they managed to create a little world for episode and then they moves on to the next thing.
Right.
That was my thing about when, and I noticed definitely in the rewatch was like, I could have been fine if we explored a little bit more in the area. It's almost like video game where there's like the idea that he has a main, like there's a main story and then there's a ton of side missions.
Yeah.
For Samurai Jack, and like sometimes side missions in video games are really long and sometimes they're like, oh, you got to take this necklace to this person because they lost it and now you found it in the bottom of a river.
Right.
And there's more story or there's not. So it's like one of the things where that's something I noticed in the rewatch was just the idea of a lot of times my favorite episodes are just the side missions.
The side quests.
Right. Yeah, the side quests are totally what I'm into. So
it's Link just trying to collect chickens for somebody.
Right. Well, there's like a similar in the Spider-Man PS4 game. There's a part where you're catching pigeons for a guy.
Yeah,
right.
Because they escaped from someone let him loose from a coop on the top of the rooftop in New York. So
sounds fun.
Similar. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I'd watch that as an episode of something.
Yeah.
If that was like a spectacular episode, I'd watch that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we keep bringing up the Bounty Hunter episode, so I will point out it's season 4, episode 5.
Okay.
Which the title they give it is The Princess and the Bounty Hunters. That's the title it was given after the fact.
Yeah, it is so good. It is so good. So what are some other really good ones out there that we just keep coming back to? What did you guys rewatch also?
Well, and one that jumped out at me, and I did rewatch it, was that's season 3, episode 9. And like that is like, we can just talk about these in any order because like that's the nature of the show.
Yeah,
right.
This stuff, you can watch these shows, you can watch most of these episodes in any order you want, and it's perfectly fine. But season 3, episode 9 is Jack in the Haunted House.
Yep. Okay.
And it is Jack again, traveling, walking the land.
Right. I just remember that one. He takes the path like he throws the stick up at the fork in the road to decide which way to go.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
and sees like a little girl and follows her to a house.
Okay.
And then nothing goes well at this house.
Right.
Right.
So, like, what jumps out about it is that it is like, we talked about them going into different styles. We talked about them using the split screen. We talked about them doing like noirish and different tone. This one goes into this like demonic sequence that's all black and white and super abstract.
Yeah.
For a long time. For like a big piece of this episode. It's very like super abstract and like ink, like black ink on white and like brush strokes, and it's depicting this house is basically possessed by spirits of Aku, I think, right? They don't say it specifically, but they look kind of like that inky like Aku magic. But they've like possessed, like taken over this house and the inhabitants, which were the little girl's family, and they're all kind of possessed by him, and Jack just has to vanquish them. And that battle is disturbing and daring, especially for a cartoon at that time.
Yeah.
And I really remember that one.
Yeah, that's a great looking one too. Yeah. I remember even not the abstract parts. That's also another one that I think, like, just normally, I think that it's a standout looking episode.
Yeah,
just like the house and stuff like that, and the path he's walking down and stuff. It's very moody,
very atmospheric.
Also the zombie episode, which is like, it might be the episode right before that. I can't quite remember. It's in season 3, but he's like walking in a graveyard, and Aku like raises the dead. And sends this army of zombies after Jack that he's got to he just got a sword to take care of the problem.
Right.
It's a great one.
Yeah. Do you remember the name on that one?
It's just Jack versus the zombies, I think, which is what they gave. I think I want to say it's like episode 8 of season 3. Season 3 had a lot of good ones, like stacked on top of each other. I remember.
According to Wiki, it's episode 4, but sometimes they could be in different orders, different places. And you can watch it in whatever order you want most of the time.
Yep. Doesn't really have a lot of 2-parters. There's 1 or 2, but, The Birth of Evil one, which is sort of like the origin of Aku episode, also in season 3.
Right.
That's a 2-parter. Centers on Jack's dad. It's a great one. That's a terrific one. But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, it's, you can just kind of pick and choose whichever. The ninja one is always a fun one for me. Like that's an art style episode that like gets me every time. For when he fights him, and he's like in that tower, and the sunlight's coming in a way, and it's kind of creating these stark, light and shadow, across the floor and everything, and there's ninjas hiding in the shadows, and so Jack like turns his kimono inside out, so it's all white, and so you're getting kind of like a spy versus spy sequence of it. It's so awesome looking. Yeah, that one's one of my favorites. Tommy, what did you rewatch?
I didn't. I saw the first half of The Birth of Evil, which is a nice intro because they show 3 different deities. I think they showed Osiris. Is that the head of the like the supreme ruler of Egyptian mythology or whatever? Odin.
They show Ra and Odin. I remember. I can't remember the third one.
I want to say it's Osiris.
It's Osiris. Okay.
Yeah, and how they just attack this creeping evil, and how it drifts into space, and when it arrives at Earth, it literally kills all the dinosaurs. That's how they explain it. But no, it's almost no sound to it whatsoever, like what Frank was saying earlier.
kills all the dinosaurs. Oh, you just got me. Like Samurai Jack and Primal could be in the same universe.
Yeah, it could be. It definitely could be.
Is that how Primal's going to end?
Oh, maybe.
Well, theoretically, they're not. Well, it might not be just because there's no dinosaurs around, no people around there are dinosaurs, but yet Primal has it. So,
right.
for all we know, that could be the far future.
Yeah,
as far as Primal's concerned. But no, oh my gosh, it's just enthralling until they come to the part where Jack's father is tasked with the mantle of destroying this evil forest that keeps sprouting out with killer tar killing people. It's weird how they depict death in that too, because you get used to seeing robots all the time, but that one is the one I can firmly remember that where things actually die. Like this one guy loses a chicken and screams. There's this one guy that gets stuck in the tar and he calls more people to come to pull him out. And instead of you seeing him pull out, all they do is scream and that's it. It's just like macabre.
There's that nice bit where he's riding in with all the other guys on the horses, and then like little by little, like his army is dwindling down until it's just him.
Yeah. When he attacked, it's nice. That's
a great bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that one. I saw the intro one. And I saw the chicken one. The chicken one's funny.
You watched the chicken one?
The chicken was funny because how he gets out of his predicament is purely as chance as how he got into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point he's like, "Oh, I guess I'm a chicken now," and then he's slung over, like hungry, but just as quickly as he got turned into a person, as quickly is how quickly he got turned into a chicken. But it's an interesting, just like a day in a life type of situation for him. But those are the ones I got the chance of watching.
Yeah, I like the Western one a lot too, because it's got a Quick Draw McGraw cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something, not just about that one, but something I was catching, like when I watched it, but then watching it again, is how much stuff they reference throughout the show. Like just stuff they like specifically reference, and other stuff they just kind of like hint at or just do tributes to. But like the gangsters early on in season 1, or I guess towards the latter part of season 1, I feel like are supposed to be like the little short gangsters from Bugs Bunny, but there's like a whole gang of them. That's the vibe I got from that one. And like in the first episode, or somewhere in the first 3 in the Samurai Jack movie as it was aired, Jack's riding a horse, and it's like the horse from Thundar that Ookla rides.
Yep.
Absolutely, I'm sure that's where they were drawing it from.
Yep.
And I mean, there's so many things, because I remember there's an episode, and I do remember liking this episode, but I did not get to rewatch it, so I don't remember the details on it. But it's got like a caper, and there's a character that's totally Jigan from Lupin the Third. Like it's straight up Jigan's character design from Lupin the Third. Yeah. And I love Lupin the Third, so that easily sold me.
That's a great one too. I remember, and I didn't know that. Like that was just one of my favorites because it was like, it was a heist one, and it's kind of and it's got like a jazzy soundtrack to it, and he's
in a fedora wearing guy.
Yeah, and he's in this labyrinth, and he's trying to get this crystal, and and this is also kind of like a spy versus spy, like who's gonna get it first. And I remember we were watching that one. And then you were like, "Oh yeah, that guy's a Lupin reference," and I'm like, "A what?"
Anime.
Yeah, yeah, no.
But yeah, I mean, there's some others like Chewbacca. I think made an appearance at one point, or a very Chewbacca-like character. Yeah, I was just remembering some of the lots of those things that would pop up.
Yeah, no, they're fun stuff. My favorite too, though, is is the X9 episode, Tale of X9. That's the noir one. Oh my god,
that was the one I was going to mention.
Okay, go for it. Go, floor's yours. Take it. Go.
No. Go ahead. It's you. I'm good. I'll co-sign on it. Go ahead.
It's the everything about it. It's Jack's not in it,
right?
Except for a handful of shots, and it's the story about. Before Aku landed on the sort of robots that we all see in the rest of the episodes that Jack sort of like hacking the pieces with his sword.
Right.
He had another group of I'll say intelligent robots that were kind of like hitmen, and they were doing his bidding for him. And this is the story of one of them who develops emotions.
Right.
You know? And I'll pass it off to you. So go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I remember you showing this one to me because I don't think I'd seen it. And it was one of those where I like the noirish aspects of it. I like the idea of this, robots with emotions or, or a fun thing to play with. And then there's the whole aspect of Lulu, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is the bulldog, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the object of his feelings that this robot was feeling.
Yep. This really, really cartoony looking dog. So like, even though it's this super moody and it's raining the whole time and the music's like kind of blue and it's all like very like saturated and wet looking, and then but it still has like this tongue-in-cheek like charm to it because the dog is so cartoony looking, and the dog like when it's panting, when Lulu's panting doing the like her tongue looks like a heart.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a great design. And it's done obviously like, I don't, how could anyone not have feelings for this dog, much less a robot?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love it just because it's kind of like, he's I know, is it X9 or X49? I can't remember. Is it which one?
X9.
X9. Yeah. So it's just the idea of, being pressed into service because of the fact that the dog, and then knowing full well that it's not going to end well, Yeah. Yeah, I love that one. That one's great.
There's a fun reference in there too. If you're a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, I'll just say that. Just keep an eye out if you rewatch that episode. Yeah, no, it's a terrific one though.
Yeah,
and just makes me want to sit back and just watch it all again.
Yeah,
you can. It's all on HBO Max.
Yeah, check it out.
Very, very true. So it had gone for 52 episodes. 4 seasons originally, so like 2001 to 2004 was when the last one had come out. And, we didn't hear anything for a while. That was it. That was all we thought. That was all we thought we were getting. And then 2017 comes along, and we get an announcement that season 5 is coming out on Adult Swim. So we will get into season 5 in just a second. But first, if you like the show, you can check out all of our episodes on YouTube and letmeknowhowitis.com. Just please, however you find us, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a review. And finally, if you have any topic suggestions, send them our way on Twitter or in the comment section. Our Twitter handle is our show's initials, LMKHII. All right. So, season 5. Let's get into it.
So 5 is a bit of a different creature from the first 4 seasons.
Sure.
It went to Adult Swim.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Instead of Cartoon Network, and they took advantage of the freedom they were afforded on Adult Swim. So it went to a mature audience, which I think is interesting because it is like even the kids who grew up on it were probably, by the time it came back, were probably old enough to be watching Adult Swim shows just fine.
Right.
So I do think that was an interesting time jump there. But I feel like I think it was Zach, you had told me that they had run into some, when they were developing the show, of what they could do and what they couldn't do, and that they went with robots because it's something they could do. Like you could show Jack just chopping up robots to like a whole episode if you want, and it's fine.
Yep, and no one cares.
And nobody cares.
No parents get mad.
Yeah, because robots don't bleed.
Right.
No.
But once they got to Adult Swim, it didn't have to be robots anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. The thing I'll say is this is a hard situation for, I think, any creator to be put into.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this thing that we made that, very well, I think very possibly Gendy goes down as being known as the guy who created Samurai Jack. Very possible. I mean, it's arguable. I mean, maybe he's known for Hotel Transylvania, maybe Dexter.
Right.
But I'm betting on this. I'm thinking that this is probably going to be the one that has the real resonance.
Like his legacy, real legacy.
This thing, that only seems to get more popular after you stopped making it. Mm-hmm. And my sense is that, like, also in the intervening years, that's when the fan base sort of started leaning more and more onto, like, it's a story that needs to be finished.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you get to this 17 years later or 12 years later. Sorry, it came out in 2017. And then like, what are you going to do? And what's the fan expectation? And how are you going to make it the same? And how are you going to make it different? And it's like, it's a tightrope. It's a, you know? And the thing that I'll say that they did beautifully is the technology had changed considerably in the time. I mean, Samurai Jack was all pencil paper, right? When they were storyboarding everything. And like now, you know, all of season 5 was all done digitally. Right. You know, they did all their storyboarding, everything on computers and everything. And there was such an attention by Scott Wills, who I saw this in an interview too, who came back for it. And he's like, he wanted it to look still like it was handmade, like it was hand painted still. And he took like painstaking efforts to try and make the digital process look as much as possible like it was airbrushed. Right. You know? And I think they do a terrific job on it. I think season 5 looks incredible.
Oh yeah, it is a great looking show.
Yeah, I mean, I think they look very similar though. Like, you know, like there's not a whole lot. I mean, I'm thinking of I saw a headline today where somebody was like, how does the new Masters of the Universe, like, why doesn't it look like the original? And I'm like, because it's made like almost 40 years after the fact.
Yeah,
right.
Like, on unquestionably a higher budget.
Yeah,
things have changed.
Yeah. Because, and also the other thing is that Filmation had a style in house that they put everything through for their like their action shows all look the same.
Right.
Yeah,
that's another reason too.
And this one's not being animated on 6s.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's that too, but
yeah, and so for this one to have a 12-year gap and have it look like the previous seasons. And have it still be like fresh and new and not, I mean, it's just a testament to like the design they originally landed on. I think that like it's
right. Like that original style could still hold up years later and be just as good. Yeah.
So, okay. So what are some other thoughts? Season 5, how did you guys, I mean, it feels different because like Clifton, like you were saying, like it's a mature show,
right?
You see blood in this one,
right?
You know,
I remember liking the episodes. I thought the episodes were good. Like the particular one with was it the fight in the cave? It's all in like it's only lit by the actual striking of the swords. Is that what I'm thinking?
Right,
that episode's I love that episode. That episode's really good.
I like the motorcycle bit too. I mean, we should do the setup. Setup is it's kind of like Samurai Jack Beyond a little bit, right? It's 50 years. It's 50 years after the fact of the last episode of Samurai Jack. He hasn't found his way back home. He's still looking.
And he hasn't aged, right?
He hasn't aged, right? And
that's the twist of it. That's the twist.
Yeah, that's the twist of it. That like the time hopping is sort of like time has lost its effect on Jack. So he looks exactly the same, even though he's 50 years older.
Right. He's got a beard.
He's got his beard. He's lost his sword, and he's lost.
Right.
Like you know, he's you know, as they say in the trailer, like. He's forgotten his purpose, which is a great bit.
To me, that's almost a man out of time, literally.
Yeah.
But while I was looking up stuff on YouTube, you know how some people like to chronologize the anniversary or talk about the behind the scenes stuff. Something that jumped out that I'm not sure the validity of it, but at one point, Samurai Jack was optioned to be a live action movie. And for whatever reason, it fell through. And a lot of the ideas that we got for the live action movie is what was pushed into the 5th season of Samurai Jack.
Yeah. I feel like it had also been optioned as an animated movie too before it became
that's not right too.
It was,
as well. Yeah.
That was one of the things I saw Gendy say too, where it was optioned. They tried to finish it as a movie a bunch of times. And it always fell through. And then he had said how this happened is he had some time in between projects and he was like, well, let's finish it the way it's supposed to be done. Like, let's do it on TV. Let's kind of do like a miniseries thing and not have to like it started as a TV show. Let's finish it on TV.
Right.
And basically like reached out to Mike Lazo at Adult Swim and he was like very quickly they you know got the deal together and it's happened. Because this was one that also like we didn't know it was happening.
Right.
right? Like just, literally, I can't think of many instances today where this happens, where it's like, I woke up, I went to work that day, and somebody at work told me, like, there's a Samurai Jack trailer that just came out. Like, it's coming back.
Right.
And I was like, what? Like,
Yes.
And sure enough, it's like, yep. And even then, the turnaround from the trailer to it airing was like 4 months or something. Like,
right. It had been in production for who knows how long before it got to a trailer that we had never heard anything about it. And
so, that was just like hugely exciting.
Right.
To have it come about then. But yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts of the shift though, of it becoming more mature?
It does make sense in a way that they also shift in tone, where it stops being episodic like the first 4 seasons. Like this 5th season, you still get the elements where each episode kind of has its own feel. Like there are distinct things you can talk about in the episodes.
Right.
But it is a very serialized season.
Right.
Whereas the others were not at all.
Right.
For me, it makes, for it to become, the idea that, you can see blood and it's more mature. I think it makes sense with the fact where we're picking up with Jack, and the idea that, the fact that he's, like Tommy was saying, he's lost in time, but he's more like he's lost overall.
Right, like he's lost himself in this whole mission. It's just been going so long. It's overwhelmed him.
Yeah, it's over. It's basically he's just over. Like the wave of time have just washed over him, and there's nothing he can do.
Yeah,
and now he's basically the fact that he's just kind of like surviving, but he's not, like you said, he's lost his purpose. And the idea that from that there would be a certain amount of carelessness, like not on just, it might even be like he's just going through the fact that he just doesn't. The fight has overwhelmed him, and he just he can't really compete with it. He can't really answer it anymore.
Right.
So therefore the idea that there would be, more mistakes or more bloodletting was not surprising, because it's one of those things where he's got to rediscover his path and get back on it in order to wrap things up. So,
yeah.
No. Well, for me, overall, what I got from it was, we saw a story that wasn't really broached or approached, in which he didn't have to do it alone. We don't get a love story prior to what was shown in the 5th series. We don't get like a sidekick in a way. We get a certain rivals, like with the Scotsman,
right?
But we don't get someone who basically fights with him to achieve his goal until the final season. And then you get the montage of everyone he's helped in the course of the time that he's there, in which, again, it emphasized the fact of it was a Herculean task to begin with, and to think that he could ever achieve that on his own, it was the futility of it. It wasn't until that he got various forces combined in order to achieve his goal that he actually achieves his goal. But that had to come into play after the series of stories and events that he went through. So for me, it was a bit of the story that you could have never have gotten prior to that point. And it adds new dynamics of storytelling that wasn't established previously. That's what I liked about the last season.
The ally montage is great too. Like that's one of my favorite bits of the 5th season, because it's a wonderful life. It's like it's
right. Of course.
It's the town coming together to help George Bailey. Like, which is always great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also the amount of, just the idea of when you consider all the, like, it's important that I think it's one of those things where Aku is so, even though Aku can basically, knows he's going to exist in the future, the short-sightedness of Aku, like, he's like, I'm just going to banish you to the future, and I'm not going to have to worry. I mean, I'll see you again in the future. He tells him, I'll see you again, Samurai. But the idea that he doesn't realize that by doing this, he's basically setting up his defeat.
Right.
That's one of those, because I guess he figures, he's going to be so fish out of water. There's no way he's going to be. And then Jack is, being the hero of the piece, helps people out, does all the stuff that he does, before we get to the end. So.
Yeah, I think it's a bit jarring.
Yeah.
The mature stuff, but it can sometimes have the scent of it not being the show you fell in love with.
Right.
But it is the show you fell in love with in other ways. And Clifton, like you were saying, like I like that it does, the change does signify like a change in narrative structure and everything. Right. Also, like, you know, I think it is well done ultimately, but there is like, it's also one of the things where just the visuals are so close that you can forget sometimes that it's not like just a random one from season 3. And so like, which I think does make it effective, right? Because I mean, if you're going to go into mature, like it is shocking genuinely, like, you know, like I said, like, you know, when he gets stabbed in his abdomen, I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, right. Like, you know, it hits you hard. Any final thoughts on the show? Anything you guys are just is going to explode out of you if you don't say?
Well, I mean, I think like just we mentioned the sidekick aspect of it, or the journey, you know, someone on the journey with you, and I think it's interesting, like we said, that we don't really get any of that kind of, you know, romance or any of that stuff beforehand. So Ashi's kind of important, I think. Mm. I liked all the stuff they did with Ashi. I liked all the stuff with the confronting everyone and basically breaking away from what her life was supposed to be. Mm. You know, to reject all that in order to be with Jack is, you know, it's pretty big, right? Yeah. I mean, you know, that's important. And then are we going to talk the ending, or are we just going to let people watch it?
What do you guys think?
I said let people watch it.
Okay.
us discussing it to a T kind of takes away from people engaging in their own experience with it. So
people experiencing it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, I have my thoughts, but I can save them for another time. So watch Samurai Jack.
Watch Samurai Jack. And if you want us to discuss the ending, let us know.
Sure.
How about that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. So hit us up on the comments or on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts on Samurai Jack. What do you love about it? Favorite episodes? Or if you're checking it out for the first time, let us know what you thought. As always, we'll post links and examples to everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com. So please remember to like us and follow us on social media, and we will see you next time.